is Johnny Wrestling, or Johnny Takeover, as my shirt says. And listen, I want you to listen. Like, we're involved right now. It's crazy. It's loud. It's hectic. We're in New York City. But I want you to listen to the No Holds Barred Network.
How's it going, ladies and gentlemen? That's right, Leroy Green joins the battle right here on Under the Ropes, episode number 2, right here on the No Holds Barred Network, your source for all AEW content and more, such as this show, Under the Ropes, where we interview independent talent around the wrestling world. I'm your host, as always, the self-proclaimed greatest host, Kyle Masters, and I'm joined by my co-host. She is the executive vice president of Giggles, the heartbreak chick, Tiffany. And as you can see, if you're watching the video version of this podcast live on youtube.com/NHBWR, you can see we are joined by our special guest for this episode in a video game themed background that I've made for us today, and that is none other than Leroy Green. What is going on, Leroy?
Not much. Just hanging around, playing some games, training up for this big House of Glory show.
That's right.
Just trying to do my thing.
That's right. High Intensity 8 is around the corner, which we'll talk about in a second. But guys, if you're new to the show, welcome. This is the second episode here on Under the Ropes. Episode number 1, we interviewed Anthony Gangone, who Leroy is very familiar with. Actually, he is actually the number 1 on the list of husbands from Tiffany.
Where's the shirt?
Yeah, I heard about that. I heard about it.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it is the show. Oh wow, look at that. Yeah, that's the shirt.
I mean, there's space below, so who knows?
Just, I'm sorry, but I actually have a message for you, Leroy, from Anthony himself. He told me to tell you that he's number 1.
Wow.
That's it?
That's
wow.
the message. Anthony told me to tell you on air.
I didn't realize it was a competition. I didn't realize I was supposed to be like I usually try to be like number 1 on the leaderboards, but I'm just like, I wasn't ready for this. I mean, jeez.
You guys got to settle it in the ring. This has got to be done formally here. Battle for Tiffany. Battle for number 1.
Now I feel like
how do I move up then? What do I do? I gotta grow a beard or something? Like, what are we talking?
You gotta wear an eye patch.
Yeah, like I gotta yell a lot. I gotta be angry. That's what people are into, right? That's cool, right?
That's what the cool kids are into nowadays.
Apparently.
Anyways, guys, this is where myself and Tiff interview such independent stars like Leroy Green today, and our last episode, Anthony Gangone. Get you guys out there more of a knowledge about who they are, where they come from, and their background in wrestling. And who knows, one day you could see them in the big league somewhere, and then you'd be like, oh, I remember that guy because I knew about him from Under the Ropes.
Yes.
That's what we're hoping for.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
And especially on this episode, we're going to be also talking some video games because that's also a cool thing to do because I love video games. So does Tiff. Obviously, so does Leroy. That's why the whole theme of this podcast is centered around that as well. But without further ado, before we go anywhere, as we just mentioned right at the beginning of this podcast, House of Glory has a event coming up, High Intensity 8, which I'll transition it now on the screen for you guys at YouTube. Obviously, we had the big marquee match, which is being thrown around the Twitter sphere, I guess you can say, and that's obviously the match with Leroy. I'm not talking about the one above it. Obviously, it's going to be one with Leroy. I'm just saying. I don't know who these Young Buck guys are or Private Party. I have no idea who they are. But I know the main event's definitely the one with Leroy, and I'm just saying. But, anyways, but yes, the High Intensity 8 pay-per-view around the corner. I know Tiffany's going to be there. Leroy's going to be there in a 6-man match, which we have.
Suicidal Subway, yep.
We have such stars as Rich Swann in there. A lot of people recognize him. And we did hear, me and Tiff, before this, that the 6th superstar in this match is going to be someone from the School of House of Glory, I think it was.
Yes, a House of Glory student is what I was also made aware of. Which is a little bit of a surprise, but I mean, it's cool. I mean, I remember being like one of those up and comers, trying to push my way onto shows into more of a wrestling role. So, I'm happy for somebody to get that opportunity, and I can't wait to see him in the ring. Hopefully it's someone cool.
So if you guys are at House of Glory, you have a chance to go, make sure you go check it out, and make sure you are cheering on Leroy as he battles in a 6-man match. I cannot wait to watch that. And Tiffany's going to be there watching it live. So, and then obviously the big match with the Young Bucks, their last independent show ever, and Private Party facing off against them. Finally signed over to AEW. Congrats to them as well. I know you are definitely familiar with them from being wrestling in House of Glory, Leroy.
Absolutely. They're like 2 of my best friends in the entire world, honestly. I mean, they might not claim me, but
hey, maybe they can put in a good word for you. That's all I'm gonna say. That's all I'm gonna say.
Actually, Kyle was down here in April, so he was with me when I said, because I know I sent you the picture that I took of you with Smiley.
Yeah.
Oh, Kyle was with me because Kyle is in Canada. So Kyle came down to visit me for a week, and I actually made sure, I was like, we have to go to a House of Glory show. So I took Kyle. So Kyle obviously knows you as well. So.
Oh, okay. Oh, so you were there for Culture Class.
Yeah, that was awesome. That was an amazing show. So if you guys are in that area and you've not gone to see a House of Glory show, I highly suggest you go make your way out to one of these shows because they are awesome. So they put on a really good show. I definitely enjoyed myself, and then I remember seeing you as well, Leroy. So that was awesome. And it's good that we get to talk here too after that.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that a ton.
So without further ado, let's get right into it, shall we? And Tiffany, I'll let you lead things off here.
Okay. So where did you start in professional wrestling, and how did you become a professional wrestler?
Well, I started off at the House of Glory Wrestling School, the dojo, just like pretty much most of the talent there. I was grinding for some time, and I was selected to be a referee, which I was sort of a little about. Yeah. And then I got an opportunity to join the faction Cash Flow with Ken Broadway at the time. And from then on, I was just taken on as a young boy. I was allowed the opportunity to, be with Ken for a lot of those big matches. Cash Flow went through many changes, people coming in, people coming out. But for most of it, I got to stick around with Ken Broadway. I got to learn underneath him. And eventually came the time where I broke away from him and I started doing my own thing. Nice. And yeah, that's a short version of a long story because I just recapped about like the first 3 years of my career. Right.
That's just interesting. You were chosen to be a ref at first. That's different. It's interesting. Do you ever like sit there and think back? Maybe what if I stuck and I was just a referee today? Like. Yeah, and I mean, there's no disrespect to being a ref. No. If that's what you want to do, like absolutely. Being a ref is pretty much as tough as being a wrestler. Oh yeah. The stripes go through a lot, and I remember being a little worried because your dream from 5 years old is not to be a referee, it's to be a wrestler. And I was like, oh shoot, I hope I don't get stuck like this. I hope it's not something permanent. And that's why when I saw the opportunity to join Cash Flow, I was like, yep, I'm out. I'm doing it.
I guess it's also one of those things, correct, that you're getting like your training. As a ref, you're kind of learning everything, which kind of brings you to where you are now.
Absolutely, yeah. It's just good to be a jack of all trades. Like I've reffed my fair share of big matches. A few years ago, I remember I was a special guest referee of the Ken Broadway Anthony Gangone no ropes match, which to me is still one of the best matches House of Glory's ever produced. And I got to be the referee of that match. I remember feeling the crowd. It was a magical night. Like that match itself was just. I get goosebumps thinking about that crowd reaction still. Wow.
Yeah, Anthony, I think, brought up that on episode 1. That's one of his favorite matches as well. So that's really cool. So sticking on the topic of your training, you were trained at one time by the Amazing Red a little bit. What was it like learning under him? And is there anything you learned that helped you to where you are today?
Pretty much everything. The Amazing Red was absolutely a big help. Like it's almost humbling because, like, this is a guy I watched on TV growing up, and like you almost think to yourself, oh, this guy doesn't have any time for me. I'm just this little dweeby kid from Brooklyn. And it's really cool to think about the fact that he was also kind of like that. Like, coming into wrestling, he was a very scrawny kid, very short, very non-pro wrestling, but he's just not an atypical pro wrestler. He's not 6'2", 250 pounds of muscle, jacked white dude. He's a short Hispanic kid, and he made his name off of just being amazing by working harder than anybody else, no matter what his size was. And that's super inspirational. And to me, that was the biggest takeaway, is that, like, you have to just go at it. And I think that pro wrestling a lot of times is, like, amazing because, like, it doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter who you are, what path you took to get there. As long as you put in the work, as long as you love this, as long as you truly have this serious passion for this, you can accomplish anything, really.
You hear it in your voice, like how passionate you are with it.
Thanks.
Nah, she's right. She's right there. That's that's actually a really good answer. I love that.
It is. And I've seen Amazing Red wrestle a bunch of times. So, I mean, I see him. I think I one of the last matches at the ICW versus
Danny D'Amato.
Yes, I was at that show. Like, it was so awesome.
Danny D'Amato, yes.
Just amazing, guys. If you haven't seen, like, go on YouTube and go look for matches because it's just.
Amazing Red could still go, and I know he's been dealing with the documented the injuries and stuff, but he can still go. I absolutely 180% believe that, and it's just a matter if he wants to. He absolutely can decide if he wants to step back for sure, or if he wants to keep going with this. And I think that that's his decision, and I'll 180% again support it. Either way, if he wants to decide that, hey, maybe I should hang it up for my health, or if I go, maybe I got one last run in me, either way, he's got my support.
Awesome.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
I wasn't gonna say much. Just go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, all right. Who's your favorite wrestler, or maybe wrestlers growing up?
Oh, wrestlers for sure. I mean, if you have one favorite, it's kind of like, it's a little boring. The top one was definitely Rey Mysterio.
Yes.
I'm half black, half Mexican, so Rey Mysterio was definitely someone who I just resonated with. The cool masks, the high flying, the innovation. Rey Mysterio in his prime was just, he was completely different than everybody else, and I loved him for it. Other favorites was Jeff Hardy. I love The Rock and Austin. I'm a little bit younger on the young side, so I didn't get too much Attitude Era. I got like the tail end of it.
Yes.
So like my memories are more so of like ruthless aggression.
Yeah.
So as I came into my own, I started to become more so fans of Eddie Guerrero, RVD.
Yes.
Like I said, Jeff Hardy, Matt Hardy. You could put in early John Cena. When he was doing the rapping stuff. I love that stuff. I ate that up. I know the internet's probably going to destroy me for that, but whatever.
Man, the Ruthless Aggression era, the Smackdown, and I always label it Smackdown 2006, was probably the best Smackdown ever. Like, the roster and what we got on TV back then was amazing.
No, absolutely. I mean, I look back to that, and I was like, wow, that was a year of really good wrestling, really solid wrestling. Like, I think, most people don't always agree, and they're like, oh, well, I didn't like this, or I didn't like that. But I think that was such a solid year. I remember Rey Mysterio winning the world title for the first time.
Oh, yeah.
It was such a big deal, and it was such a, like, big dreams do come true kind of thing. And it really was, because, like, I remember watching that and thinking, oh, my gosh, this is, like, the smallest guy in the entire company winning the world title, at WrestleMania. And that's so freaking cool.
And for back then, like, you think about, like, who the world champions were back then, like Triple H and Goldberg and Batista.
Yes.
All these guys were huge, what fit the wrestler build to a lot of companies out there. And then for a guy like Rey Mysterio to win it in at WrestleMania of all events, that what made it even bigger. I think it's bigger than what people actually think it is. Like, this was a massive milestone, especially for Rey Mysterio.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that wrestling has definitely evolved now. I think because our perception of athletes have changed, because 10, 20 years ago it was like, oh, you just got to be big and strong and have a huge chest. Now it's like, well, are you healthy? Are you well conditioned? Do you have a strong foundation? Now athletes are completely different now. Now it's like, you have to do yoga.
Exactly.
Now you have to take care of your body. Now you have to, like, it's not just being, like, fit. You have to also be super well conditioned, super toned. You can't have body fat. It has to be very intricate. There's so much that goes into it, and it, like, now our athletes aren't, I don't want to say they're not as big, but it's like they're not as big because a lot of times they'll be like, oh, well, I can't be 500 pounds of muscle because that puts a lot of strain on my ankles and my lower body. Exactly. So I have to be smarter, and a lot, especially as you get older as well. So I think that the public knows this. So pro wrestlers, don't necessarily need to be 6'6" and 300 pounds of muscle. I mean, there's wrestlers who are that, but you don't need to be that way anymore, which I think is pretty awesome.
Exactly.
Wait, I'm gonna cut you off because we got a question in chat. Ask Leroy what made him a wrestling fan. Sorry.
No, it's not that tough. It's just like there's a lot of things that are like I remember Rey Mysterio's debut, and I remember seeing the 619 for the first time on SmackDown. I think I had seen clips of him in WCW, but I don't remember seeing like too much of him. Like I don't remember it vividly. And then if I had to go even earlier, I remember The Rock definitely cutting a promo. Like I remember him making me laugh at like 3 years old. I can't tell you what episode, I can't tell you what he was saying, but I remember thinking, oh my gosh, The Rock is so cool. I love this guy. And he was probably just like making fun of someone too. So
mine actually was The Undertaker. When I first started watching, first started watching, which got me to fall in love with wrestling, was just his whole gimmick. And this was back, it was back when Kane first debuted. Around that, that's when, not when I first started watching, but when I started catching up on wrestling, and that right there is his whole persona and his character. The Undertaker made me fall in love with wrestling, and then from there I branched off, obviously, but it definitely I can pinpoint it to one guy, and that was the Undertaker.
That's a really good one. I mean, the Undertaker. I mean, I just talked about how you don't have to be big, but a lot of those bigger, larger than life characters literally was the ones who hooked me. Like who went, oh my gosh, this is super cool, because you can't. Like you see a 7-foot tall Big Show or Kane, Undertaker, it's just like, wow, like that's crazy. And then once you see them chucking people around, you're like, oh my gosh, that's really crazy. I want to see more of this.
Yeah, especially for like if you're younger. Yeah, that catches your eye right away. So
go even further back because I mean I'm older than both of you by a lot, but I go back to I used to watch my dad because he always used to watch it on Monday Night Raw, and we're going back to early '90s and stuff. But I remember Lex Luger, that I remember liking that. I know, but it's old school.
Yeah.
And then
and obviously I know who Lex Luger is, but it's before my time, and I can't. And so when I think of WCW as well, I don't have memories of it as WCW. I only really know WWE WCW, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I didn't really get a real WCW. I just know that I was like, oh, WCW, that's that whack stuff. That was that company.
The invasion angle.
Yeah, which was cool in certain ways. I remember being a kid and thinking it was super cool. So
the Survivor Series 2001 was amazing. And when WWF won and the whole crowd was going nuts, and Vince came out and had his both hands up, and everyone was going crazy, acting like WWF finally triumphed over WCW, and it was just. They made the stories believable that there was actually an invasion going on, because it was so fresh at the time, because they started that storyline right as McMahon bought the company, so it was believable. It's not like they started that storyline 3 years down the line. They started that right from the get-go, and that's what I think made it more believable and more awesome to watch.
I mean, I couldn't tell you any of that because I was probably 6 or 7 at the time, so I just knew that it was super cool to watch. People would try to tell me about this stuff, and I'm just I think people also need to remember. I was I wasn't even 10, so I wasn't really coherently thinking about these outside forces. I would just watch it in a vacuum and just think, oh my gosh, this is cool to watch on Mondays. And at the time, Thursdays? Yeah, Thursdays.
Right.
SmackDown was, and also I didn't have cable a lot growing up. I'm not I'm a poor kid from Brooklyn.
Yeah.
So I would mostly just catch SmackDown on UPN. See, I'm old enough for that.
UPN, I remember that. I'm from Canada, but I remember seeing the UPN logo on the top of the screen when I would catch whenever it would come up up here. I remember that.
Yeah, so it's just such a different time. Especially when you think about wrestling and how it was back then. That's why sometimes I think it's interesting. People are like, oh, well, people just need to do this and that'll make wrestling cooler. And I'm just well, it's a different time. Social media was not a thing back then. The internet wasn't even really a thing back then. People were still catching up and catching on to that. And I think that it's just such a cool time for wrestling. Like, I mean, I'm not gonna be one of those people who's like, oh, wrestling is so bad now, and wrestling is cool to me. I enjoy watching wrestling on pretty much all levels.
Exactly.
For the most part.
So I think we had a question in the chat there, Tiff.
Yeah, I think it was actually one of our questions, but we can go for it. So, where is it? What is your favorite match of all time?
See, I do kind of hate these questions because it's like I don't like to put a stamp on it because then it's like it's always changing, and like I'll rewatch old matches that I would say, oh, that's my favorite match. And then I won't have, like, not to say I won't have the same feeling, but like maybe I'll go, I like this match more than that match because of this reason, because I'm in this stage of my life where I appreciate this kind of thing more so than another thing, if that makes sense. I think like wrestling is, art. And I think that a lot of times how you view art and what you'd say is like the best kind of art, it depends on how you're feeling at the time. It depends on where you're at. And me watching something when I'm 13 resonates with me differently at 22.
Exactly.
So like that's tough. Like I could tell you like maybe like 3, 4 off the top of my head and give you some good reasons why. I've always said the first Shawn Michaels and Undertaker match at WrestleMania. That's
just
always
gonna say that. Yep.
I want to.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a popular one. I mean, if you're hoping for some crazy '80s match, I'm sorry to disappoint. That match to me had everything, and I think to this day it's a lot of fun to watch. I think you can show that to anybody, people who don't even watch wrestling, and they would still be hooked. Yeah. They don't even need to necessarily understand everything, but they'd feel the stakes, they'd feel everything, they'd feel the crowd, and I think that you can go from there. Another one of my favorites, even though I don't think it's a wrestling clinic, but I do appreciate it just because of the magnitude of it. I always look back on John Cena and CM Punk for Money in the Bank, and I think that match is such a really strong match to me. Just emotional wise, you didn't know what was gonna happen. Right. Like you genuinely just didn't know. You were just like, oh, John Cena's just gonna win again.
It's a very touchy storyline too.
Yeah, it was very. I sincerely didn't know what was gonna happen. I remember. That was around the time where I started becoming savvy to the internet and like the wrestling community of the internet. So it was like a perfect storm for me as a fan because I was like, oh, CM Punk's gonna leave. His contract. And then I see him cut that. He cuts the pipe bomb, the famous pipe bomb. And I'm like, I didn't think he was gonna say that. Like I didn't think he was gonna say that he's leaving. And then you just and you're just hooked. And honestly, like it's funny that you say the pro wrestling thing. Maybe I should have said this, but the summer of Punk, for lack of a better term, that summer of 2011 was pretty much the summer where I decided to myself, okay, I have to be a pro wrestler at some point. I have to try this because I was so inspired by it because that time of wrestling was so cool. People who don't even like wrestling were coming up to me going, because, they were like, they knew I was a wrestling fan. Like, yo, Leroy, look, that match was so cool. Like, oh my God, like, what's going to happen? He took the title. He left the company. Like, this is crazy. I don't believe it. You know what I mean? And it's just so, and then he showed up at Comic-Con. He was arguing with Triple H. That stuff was so cool. Like, oh man.
I think, like the Triple H, the Shawn Michaels Undertaker one was my favorite for the longest time, up until it finally got passed, and it was this year at NXT TakeOver New York between Johnny Gargano and Adam Cole. That match was insane because I was following NXT to a T at that point, and the whole I'm like I was going into the match. I'm like they didn't have that big of a bill, but I'm excited for Cole and Gargano. Obviously, both like two great wrestlers coming together.
Yeah,
the story they told within the match is what made the match. You can ask Tiff. I was jumping. We were both there live. I was jumping out of my seat in disbelief when.
It was crazy.
It was that when Gargano went back into the ring and then Cole gave him a super kick and then a last shot to the back of the head, and I for sure that was going to be over. And when Gargano kicked out, I just remember people in my section just jaws dropped. It could not move, and the
amount of times that me and Kyle were screaming, I'm in all Johnny Gargano, he's in all Adam Cole, and we're like screaming at each other. It was just insane.
It's funny because coming into wrestling, like I don't know if I'm gonna lose points for this, but I'll be real. I wasn't the biggest indie wrestling kid coming up. So like Ring of Honor, I was aware of it, but I wasn't like really keeping up with it until like much later, you know.
Yeah.
So I don't, I don't talk about with reverence to CM Punk, Samoa Joe, Daniel Bryan days. I think more so Generico, Steen, a little bit of Davey Richards and Lethal and them and all that stuff.
When Steen was there, that's when I first started watching.
Yeah, so to me, I'm a little bit late compared to a lot of my other fellow wrestling brothers. Like, they're like, what? You didn't watch Ring of Honor in 2004? What is wrong with you? You know? And I'm just like, I'm sorry. I was still a baby. But no, I think that match had a lot of things because I'm a huge fan of both of them. I look at both of their bodies of work, and I respect them both a ton, especially Gargano. I feel like there's a lot of elements of Gargano maybe in me. I don't know if subtle or
I can
not
see
so
it.
subtle.
From what I've seen at House of Glory, I can see it. I can see a little bit of it.
Yeah, I'm a fan of his as well. So I was happy with him when he won the title. I've been invested in him for quite some time, even since the independence. So yeah, that match was really good. That match was really good. It's funny because like you almost think to yourself like, oh, NXT is gonna lose some steam, and then they have the takeover. You're like, oh, NXT never lost it, they still got it.
And then they get call ups, and you're like, oh, they're gonna lose some steam now. Then they make stars like that out of nowhere, and they keep going. It's insane.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think it's just a testament to how deep the roster is. Like just the Performance Center alone, and like WWE alone. Like people are like WWE this, WWE that, and I'm just like, yeah, but the roster is pretty off the hook. Like they have so much talent that they literally don't know what to do with some of them, you know, for better or worse. You know.
Hopefully, I would say hopefully you one day, but I hope you will be used properly.
No, I go to AEW. Shh, don't say that.
Hey, we're not forcing them in any brands here.
Oh my gosh! I mean, I am gonna see the Young Bucks. I don't know.
I mean, they're gonna be in town. You know, executive vice presidents. They have the power.
Yeah, maybe I'll see Kenny. Maybe me and him can play Street Fighter over.
Oh man, that'd be sweet.
I mean, I'm not good at Street Fighter, so actually, I would need to brush up really good.
God,
he's
hardcore.
Street Fighter. Yeah, he's legit.
He's got the board and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, but if he faces me in Smash Ultimate, I think I got him. I think I got him.
Oh yeah. We have a question about Smash Ultimate we'll get to later that I really want to know. So other than that, let's finish off some wrestling questions before we get there.
Yes.
Who out there is a dream opponent? It could be from any brand. It could be from any era. Would be someone. Actually, you know what? Let's keep it current. Who's a dream opponent out there right now that you would want to face one day?
I already said him, Kenny Omega. The best bout machine, all of that hype and fanfare. You almost think to yourself, that's a load of garbage, but no, that man brings it every single match. Like it's not just like the big match. It's like every match. Yeah. And to me, like that's the kind of passion that I want to have because like I've been, I feel like earlier on I was guilty of just not like going, oh, I'm going to get up for the big matches and then whatever for other matches. But now it's like I want to have that. Every match is a big match, and I think that's been the biggest thing with me, like with my big game Leroy stuff lately. It's that's legitimately my focus. Everything I step into is a big game, a big match, a big moment that I'm trying to create. Like that's my focus, and a big part of that is because of Kenny Omega. Not to mention the video game shtick. A lot of my stuff is very, very much influenced by him. Without a Kenny Omega, there is no Leroy Green. So it would be perfect. I think a perfect storm.
No,
Secret Detective in the chat says, that's it. I love him already. So you're out of okay? Just so you know.
Oh, thanks.
But yeah, it's funny you say about Kenny Omega how you mentioned that any match with him is a big match. He can make any small match into a big match. And I'll bring up the recent match he just had at Fight for the Fallen with Shima. I don't think anyone saw that as a big main event type of match. Everyone thought it was going to be a good match, but I think it definitely delivered plus some because of a guy like Omega, not taking anything away from Shima either. That was my favorite match of the entire night was Shima and Kenny Omega. So he makes any match he's in, I agree, a big match. And I absolutely love his new theme song. Oh my God, I'm in love with that thing.
I just found it on YouTube. It's really cool. I love it. It actually just got me super inspired for my own stuff because I was just like, wow, like custom theme songs might be the way to go. And like, oh my gosh, it gave me. I love watching wrestling. I love seeing stuff like that because it gets my creative juices flowing, you know. And I think that
That's
a lot
awesome.
of times, like, people will just see something, think, oh, that's cool, and then they kind of shut their brain off. But for me, it's like, oh, but how could I do this? How could I do something like that? You know? And that's not to say like I'll go, I'm gonna rip. No, no, I just think to myself though, I'm like, that's so cool. And like obviously a lot of Kenny Omega, you know, has inspired me and inspired a lot of what I do. But to me, it's like I'm a different person completely. And I think that I'm very excited to see where I can take it, because that reminds me that, oh, I can take this a step further. I can go even further, you know? And I think that that's the coolest thing about AEW is that like they're really trying to push the boundaries of what we think wrestling can be, you know? You know, WWE, we know what WWE is and is going to be, you know? Not to diss them at all, but that's just kind of it. AEW is like, it's exciting because it's like they're pushing the envelope just a little bit. They're just like,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, WWE's they have their thing is the sports entertainment factor. Obviously, that's their number one. They're the best. They're the king. They're the rock stars of sports entertainment. Obviously, AEW not trying to compete. They're trying to be the alternative. What they're saying and being more of a pro sports feel to it and bring more focus on the wrestling. Then they'll have some sports entertainment to it, but obviously their focus will be more pro wrestling and like Dave said, wins and losses matter. They want to make that a thing in AEW. So that's also one thing
I like that. I like a lot of stuff like that. AEW is definitely exciting. Like it's an exciting time in wrestling because I never thought to myself we'd be in a time again where we have like wrestling on such a major net. Like that alone is just really cool to me, and I think that speaks to where like there's a lot of people who go wrestling is dying, wrestling is not the same as 10 years ago, and I'm just like, well, look at this. Well, look at this, you know, we got wrestling back on TNT, and I think that that's so cool, and that's just a testament to the longevity of what the industry can be. You know, wrestling is changing, and I get it. Like with any art or with anything, like it can be, there's some good and there's some bad, you know, and I think that I always have the hope that there's way more good than bad. And I think that if you're sitting here going from some chair going, well, back in my day, kind of
territorial wrestling, that was where it's at. It's like, well, you can't really do that anymore. It's really impossible. But in a way today, it's almost the same thing. It's just, it's not territorial. It's like companies that have the entire territory, but battling against each other within it. So in a way, it's almost the same, but they don't choose to see it that way because they're stuck with that mentality of being in the past, and they don't want to move away from it and adapt with what wrestling is becoming today, which is more exciting than it's ever been.
Yeah, absolutely. There's something for everybody, and I think that like wrestling wasn't as inclusive as it is now. Like I think there's wrestling for any type of person. If you like death matches, you can watch death matches.
Right.
You want to watch something that makes you laugh, you can find those kind of matches.
Right.
You want to watch, you want to be working for more traditional kind of feel, then that you can find it. Like you can find wrestling for anything and for anybody, and I think that's the cool thing about it. And like sometimes I'm like a little jealous because I'm like, I can't really be as much of a fan as I'd like to be because I'm more so focused on competing and like competing with these people and trying to find my place in the industry and still find myself on the come up. But like I'm just like, dang, if I was a fan, like I could just enjoy myself because it's just so easy to access as well. Most of this is on YouTube for free.
Right. You're right. And then it's like we talk about this all the time on our All Elite that it's just you got to keep an open mind. You know, if there's something you don't like, there's so many different options of different styles of wrestling, and it's good. And like I mean, I think I've been huge on it. That I would say like the indie scene is insane. If you really think about it, that's where all these superstars started originally. Anyway, they had to start out in the indie scene. Yep. So I mean, that's why I always push. I mean, Leroy knows. Like I talk to him all the time, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to this show. Oh, I'm going to this show. And I'm like, I just love the indie scenes. It's just that good.
That's good. And I mean, I think I get excited for people with their passion for wrestling who jump from indie show to indie show. And I love that. And like, to me, it's funny because I didn't experience the indies, I look at it a little bit differently because it's more so like this is me experiencing the indies, being kind of a part of the indies, which is really funny to me. So, like, I think it's just so cool. Like, the idea of backpacking and going from spot to spot, like random spots, is just so fascinating to me. Like, it's really hard for me to even, like, imagine it and just go, like, oh, like, there was a few, like, 2-3 weeks ago, I did one show in Long Island, and then after that, I did a show in Pennsylvania, and I was just, like, completely different crowds, completely different experience. And I was just sitting here thinking to myself, like, wow, this is crazy. This is what wrestling is, or should be, at least to me. You know, this is wrestling.
That's awesome. That is awesome. So who's been your favorite that you've wrestled so far?
That's tough. I guess the easy one, it would just be to say Smiley. Like the last match I had at the Culture Clash is probably my favorite match, and Smiley's probably my favorite opponent because he really pushed me creatively. He really pushed me in a lot of ways. He brought a real fire out of me because, like, I have a real, like, relationship with Smiley. Smiley was one of those guys who helped me come up in House of Glory. He helped train me in a lot of respects, you know?
Oh.
So it was a lot of, like, a real emotion to a lot of what I was saying. If the story, you know, if people were following the story along, like, there was a lot. Like, that was me speaking from the heart and me, like, trying to really reignite the flame for Smiley, really bring him into what he is now, I guess. You know, and, like, I'm super happy for him because I feel like, you know, I don't want to ever take credit for someone else being successful or whatever, but I feel like if I help push him just a little bit, if I help motivate him and help push him to do even more of wrestling, which he was already doing well. Like, this dude has been everywhere. This dude has wrestled the who's who of this industry, if you really think about it. If I helped him just a little bit with that, like to just push on, then I must have did something cool, man. Because I genuinely don't think much of myself. So I was like, if I could at least help him, then, man, I did something cool.
That's
and
awesome.
That match is, like, up there for me. Like, the crowd, the atmosphere, the opponent, everything was great.
See, me and Kyle were there.
That too. I mean, you guys can tell me. I don't know. I felt an electricity. Let me know if you guys felt it.
I felt it. I thought there was a loose wire somewhere, but I think it was good. I think that was. But you're talking about House of Glory there. How is it working with the wrestlers in House of Glory, even the company itself? Like, give us a take on House of Glory. I know that a lot of people don't know about House of Glory out there, so give us what your take would be behind it, and, you know, how it is working for them.
I mean, it's, you know, both my wrestling school and also then the company. So, you know, my experience is pretty much just work hard. Pretty much breaking my back to just, you know, get an opportunity, because there's a lot of students, there's a lot of people, not to mention the outside talent who want to be a part of this. So wrestling is not ballet, and wrestling is not meant for everybody. Not to say, like, let me not say that, because wrestling is meant for everybody. It's really, 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 really hard. And not everybody's prepared for that. You know, some people just watch it on TV and think, I could do that. I love this. I love watching it. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you would love doing it. So I think a lot of people, you know, it's easy for someone to go, oh, well, I didn't like this. I had a bad experience because it's hard. So I don't look at it that way. I've had a great experience at House of Glory, pretty much, you know. And any type of, like, oh, well, there's this or that, kind of can be just nulled with, like, well, you know, if I'm not in a position that I'm in, I'll work harder to get there, you know. It's no secret that I would like to be the top guy in the company, right? Like, I think that's what everybody wants to be, right? Everybody wants to be world champion. Everybody wants to be the top of the flyers. Everybody wants to be the number one guy. And, you know, obviously I'm not going to be like, oh, well, I'm happy with where I'm at right now. No, I would like to be the top guy in House of Glory, but I have to grind and I have to get there. And I'm not going to complain. I'm not going to whine about what opportunities I haven't been given. That's never been my style. That's never been what I wanted to do. Like, if I'm not given what I want, then I'll earn it, you know? And then to me, it's like, it matters more because I had to earn it, you know? And I think that sometimes in life, not wrestling, in life, people are given things and maybe they don't deserve it, you know? And it's fine, because I like to think that the people who do work hard will eventually get their due. It may take a while. It could take months, years, whatever.
Right.
But you'll eventually get it. If you do it the right way and you keep working hard and you stay true to yourself, then you'll do good. And I think that's, like, kind of how House of Glory has been, because now I feel like I'm beginning to raise my stock a little bit, you know? I've always feel like the fans have had my back, but I feel like now the company's going, well, maybe we should do something with this nerdy kid. Maybe this nerdy kid does have something to offer us, you know?
Well, I'll be rooting for you in 2 weeks. I'll be there. I'm rooting for you.
Thanks.
That crazy fan out front.
That could be anybody.
Like, can you not let her into House of Glory? She's crazy. Like, Okay, so we're gonna go with my favorite question that I love asking everybody.
Speaking of crazy fans,
I'm a little nervous.
Okay, what has been the craziest thing you've seen a fan do to get your attention, or even see a fan do at an event? I want to hear about the crazies. Come on.
so she knows how to up her game in that term.
No!
So then...
It's funny because, like, to me, the craziest instances are more so what people write me on social media, like in my DMs and stuff.
Oh.
That's more so the craziest things to get my attention. People say the weirdest things. I mean, luckily, I usually don't open most messages, especially if I'm like, I don't really know you, and I don't think I would know you. But I think there was this one time. It was earlier on in my career, so I'm trying to recollect it. I think a girl. She was also on the younger side, so I was kind of like, she made a big point to try to get my attention, and then she goes, "Hey, sign my shirt," and she motioned to pretty much a whole chest area, and I'm just like,
I'm gonna pass.
it was like I was just like, okay, no, I'm good. You're probably like 15. I'm good. I feel uncomfortable.
I don't want to be in the news tomorrow. It's okay.
I just felt uncomfortable. Like I just that's not really what I wrestling. Even if I was a fan, that's just not what I go to wrestling shows for. That's not what I wrestle for either. It's just it made me feel a little weird. Like fans are cool, and I love fans. I think that most of them are really, really, really awesome. Like with anything, you have good people. You have people who are a little weird. So some fans can be a little aggressive,
Mm-hmm.
And I think that sometimes you do have to draw the line and say, hey, you got to respect boundaries. Hey, you got to respect the way you talk to people. Because I've also heard other stories that friends have told me about fans doing some inappropriate stuff and coming at them a certain kind of way.
I'm one. I told him a story the other
God.
day. Some guy sniffed me at the House of Glory show.
Yeah.
Weirdos.
The sniffer.
Did I lose you?
What?
Yes. Fans will do crazy things. I even just recently listened to a podcast. It was actually just recent, Jericho and MJF. And MJF actually brought up a story about him.
Oh man, hopefully I didn't lose you.
someone threw pee or something at him. It was just it was not good.
Oh, I got a poor connection sign. That's nice.
I can still hear you though.
You're
But
good.
ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna before we get into some more things here, we're gonna take a quick 20-second commercial break, and we'll go right back into some gaming. Talk about some gaming. So give us 20 seconds, guys. We'll be right back for some more Under the Ropes action. Looking for a podcast that's all elite?
We are gonna change the whole universe!
Maybe you have a super kick party or two.
Super kick party!
Then join Kyle and Tiffany on the All Elite podcast, giving you up-to-date content on everything about AEW. Subscribe to the No Holds Barred Network on YouTube and follow All Elite Podcast on Twitter at All Elite Pod. All right, guys, we're back here under the ropes, and we got the camera situation all figured out as well. Leroy's back. Didn't go anywhere.
Yes, I am.
We're going to transition to some gaming.
Yes. Let's go.
Since we know, for the people that don't, he is a huge video game enthusiast, I would put it. So we got some video game type questions here. I can't wait to get to my favorite. I'm just going to make sure here.
Yep.
Okay, so we'll start off with the first one. What is your favorite video game growing up as a child?
Okay, that's kind of easy. Yeah, it's pretty obvious. I grew up playing a lot of Super Smash Brothers, so Super Smash Brothers Melee would probably be up there. I think that I could look at my GameCube history and I could see that, like, if I had my old memory card, I had to get a new one eventually. It would say like thousands of hours put into that game, thousands if not like hundreds of thousands of hours put into that game. Anything Nintendo, I've probably put in so much time into into Super Mario 64, the Legend of Zelda series, Mario Kart, Mario Party. I'm a huge Nintendo fan.
Awesome.
Friends.
I love Super Smash Bros. So if I'm not mistaken, Melee was the GameCube version.
The GameCube version.
N64 version was the original. That was just called Super Smash Bros.
Yeah, that was just
Oh my
Super Smash
god,
Brothers.
I think that was probably my favorite. The original
That's fair. That one was pretty solid.
Yeah, N64 was my system. To this day, I still love that system.
The N64 is one of my first systems. I got it when I was 4, and I never looked back. I love it. I look at it with such reverence. I'm still waiting for my N64 HD. Like, I'm still waiting for that. Yeah, like, I kind of was like, the NES HD, the Super Nintendo HD, they're cool. They're really cool, but I've played all those games before, and I was just like, I'm just waiting for the N64 HD. Like, I'll pre-order that in 5 seconds as soon as I see it. Like, I'll pre-order that in 5 seconds. Like, that I'll invest. They could put anything on it. They say 500, I'll be like, I got it.
That's so awesome. He's always played the Switch if you follow him on like Twitter and stuff. So
yeah, I love my Switch. My Switch is also pretty up there. I think the Switch is really cool. The portability is awesome on the road, awesome just period. And then being able to play it at home is nice too.
Graphics are just absolutely amazing. He'll kick my ass if we ever play him. Just so you guys know. I have no shot at all. Like, I know.
Maybe, I don't know. We should throw you a bone. Maybe you'll do that.
All right, a little bone. Okay, that's all right. So for the guys that do not know you, do you incorporate anything from video games into your gimmick or even move set wise?
Oh, absolutely. I've wrestled with a Switch multiple times. Very dangerous, but I'm that big of a player, so I can do both. I can multitask.
Okay.
I do a Kamehameha as one of my signature maneuvers, and
nice.
Pretty devastating. And I'm always working on trying to incorporate some more stuff into my repertoire. So I'll just say, stay tuned. If you watch anime, if you follow some video game stuff, I'm always hoping people will catch on to the little things I do. I'm always trying to sprinkle in some little stuff for people who are into that kind of things, and then you can catch that and go, oh, that's not just that. That's,
So, is your signature move actually called the Kamehameha?
Yes, that's what it is. I charge it up with the Kamehameha. That's
awesome.
How I deliver
it. So this is interesting because I want to know: have you ever cosplayed? And I'm going to ask: have you cosplayed as Goku before?
What's crazy is it's kind of like with being a wrestling fan kind of thing. Like cosplaying, so. Let me give you a little bit of context. I started training to be a pro wrestler when I was 17.
Yeah.
So a lot of the stuff, like a lot of the fun, silly stuff that I wish I could have been a part of, like right around that age, I didn't get a chance to do because I was just so focused on wrestling training and just being a wrestler. So like my friends would be like, oh, let's cosplay or something or this and that. And I'd just be like, you don't really have the money for it because I'm paying for wrestling training and this and that. And and I just wasn't focused on it. Now I actually have tickets for Comic-Con New York this year, and now we're talking about cosplaying. Ooh. And so we're seeing Goku would be an obvious one, a cool one. Right now a lot of us are fans of My Hero Academia. It's a pretty popular anime, and we're talking about cosplaying. They want me to do Deku Midoriya, the protagonist of the show, because they think I fit him very well. He's pretty much just me. So cool. I'm thinking about that. That might be the first cosplay, crossing fingers if, everything goes well or whatever.
Awesome.
We have a question in the chat. Has he ever thought about streaming on Twitch?
I get asked this.
It out.
Honestly, this is the most asked question I've ever been asked. And I love Twitch, and I remember being in high school watching speed runs and watching all sorts of Twitch plays and all sorts of crazy cool stuff. And when it comes to me and trying to incorporate and mixing wrestling and the gaming, I always thought to myself, I want to do something kind of different, because I feel like the obvious, the elephant in the room is up, up, down, down. That's a whole juggernaut of the wrestling, and no one's going to be like that. And no one can compete with that. And no one should compete with that because it's its own thing. So I thought if I'm going to do video gaming and my Let's Playing and all sorts of stuff and incorporate that with my wrestling stuff as well, it has to be different. And I'm trying to figure out stuff because I also have some friends who are very passionate about gaming, passionate about anime. They're talented artists, they're talented digital artists and whatnot. And I feel like we could put together a project, a really cool thing. Like if people are into Game Grumps and other stuff kind of like that, I think that we could really do something cool. We're still trying to like conceptualize it pretty much, but I feel like it's there. So I always just say like never say never. And I think that now the time is like where it's like sooner than later. I think that maybe sooner than later, I also got to get Twitch savvy because I'm not the most Twitch savvy in terms of like uploading my content, making it look cool and whatnot. But once I am, I think that I can put on some really cool stuff. I'm excited to try that at some point.
Well, I mean, I'm really good at overlays. If you ever want to overlay, hit me up. I'll make you one for free.
There you go.
I appreciate that. I'll take you up on that. If I hit you up in 5 months, you better not.
I'll be here.
So through our research, we found out that you're also a big comic book guy. Do you have any rare comics in your collection, and do you have a favorite series of comics?
Unfortunately, no. Most of my comics were hand-me-downs from older friends or my uncle or cousins and stuff. I don't really have rare comics. I just kind of have comics that I liked reading as a kid. You know, growing up, I read a lot of Ultimate Spider-Man, a lot of the Ultimate Universe.
Nice.
I don't really, like, again, kind of being, like, you know, not really having a ton of money to spend on comics. I would actually just go to libraries and comic book shops and just read there because I didn't really have money to afford them. You know how many dirty looks I've gotten from comic book shop owners. They were just like, ugh, never buys anything. He just sits here for an hour. But I love Miss Marvel. I've been making a point to keep those comics when it comes to current stuff. I feel like there's a lot of like people talk about comic books and stuff and like, oh, the old comic. Yeah, they're classics, but the newer comics have so much cool stuff because there's comics for everybody, you know? If you just want silly fun, you can like read like a Deadpool comic. If you want like a feminine, an empowered feminine heroine, you can read like a Miss Marvel or Spider-Gwen. There's so much cool stuff. And I think that everything's a little bit different now. You want to relate to your character more as a young Afro-Latino, you can read the Miles Morales Spider-Man. You want the classic Spider-Man, you can, you know, read just this new Spider-Man, which is really, really good, like the newest run of Spider-Man. I read like the first 5 issues, and I was like, I liked what I was reading. But again, because of wrestling, I don't really keep up as much as I would like to.
Right.
But, yeah.
That's cool. Okay, so here comes my question. This is one I've been excited for.
Yes.
So we're gonna go back to video games here. Let's set the scene here. Knockout fight. Me and you. Both characters have to have 99% damage on. So I'm talking Super Smash Bros. Who are you picking as your champion?
So it's like 999%.
Yeah.
Like a sudden thing.
Yeah, sudden death. Me and you. Who are you picking as your guy?
Fox.
Fox
is always yes. Fox fast enough to get a clean hit. Fast enough to get away from whatever quick attack you're gonna try to do. And I'm pretty confident with Fox. He's not one of my go-to mains, but he's a solid part of what I do usually in Smash. Like I can pick him, and I can usually just do well against anybody really. My only thing is just he doesn't have really a lot of kill moves, and you know, a lot of his kill sequences and kill moves you have to set up and you have to combo into, which can be a little tough sometimes. You can't do that against everybody. But if you're at 999%, I believe it can get that one quick hit on you.
Okay. So I'm so glad you didn't pick Link, because my one buddy used to pick Link all the time. Not fair. Not fair.
The project is not fun at all.
No,
I hate facing Links online.
I'm kind of a basic guy. I pick Captain Falcon as mine.
Falcon is good.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like he was better in other games, but he's solid. And people are always like, "Oh, Falcon in this game sucks," and I'm just like, "He's solid. He's still fine."
If you can get it off in the right moment, if you give a Falcon punch, game over and sudden death. Like, but that would be my guy. Tiff, I know you've played these games. Do you have a character you'd pick?
I like Falcon too, actually. It's funny that I do. I like playing Falcon, definitely.
Yeah.
So let's bring some wrestling into the video game world here. So have you played any WWE games?
Absolutely. I grew up on No Mercy. I also played a ton of the Wrestlemania games. Of course, I grew up on SmackDown versus Raw. Like, I got every single year. I played them all to death. I would spend hours making my created characters. Like, that's how I learned the names of all these wrestling moves, to be honest. Like Northern Lights, all this stuff. Like it was just all there. And I just, yeah, I got all the Smackdown vs. Raws. I still play 2K from time to time. I mean, it has its issues, but, you know, I just, you know, sometimes I play online with my buddies and we'll have a great time. I do want to play the, what is it? That New Japan arcade game. The name is Fire Pro. Fire Pro.
That's it.
Yeah, I did want to get into it, but I kind of heard it sucked from a lot of people close to me. So I was like, oh.
That turned off.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. If someone enjoys it, by all means. But I heard from people close to me that it wasn't good and it didn't hold up compared to the older games. So I was just like, okay.
Actually, favorite wrestling game for me of all time is Day of Reckoning. I love those games for GameCube.
You know what's crazy is I was just playing with some of my buddies the other night. It was so crazy. We're playing Day of Reckoning 1 and 2, and it was so much fun. I forgot how fun those games were because I played Day of Reckoning, but it wasn't my game. So if you go to a cousin's house and you play a game, it's not the same experience as when you own it. So, like, I remember just thinking to myself, like, wow, like, this game really good. Like, for the time, and it still holds up. It's still a ton of fun. And me and my buddies were just talking about, like, we need to get together and play again. Like, we need to get together again.
Secret Detective in the chat says, does he play Fortnite?
Oh,
Why you gotta pick up Fortnite? Why?
Oh, boy.
This is the part where I'll put my foot down. I am not a fan of Fortnite. I'm sorry.
You know what made me not more of a fan, even more, was what I seen yesterday. Was an article for some kid that won $10 million in a Fortnite World Cup. I'm like, are you kidding me? $10 million.
Yeah, I don't want to take away because I feel like I'm that old grandpa going, whoa, your games aren't as good as my game. Like, no, if you enjoy it, you genuinely enjoy it, then that's cool. It just, a lot of Fortnite and stuff, it seems, oh my gosh, it really sound like I loved Guitar Hero. I loved all these so-called fads. Like, I loved playing Guitar Hero. I loved Call of Duty to an extent until it, like, started getting mundane and repetitive. Fortnite looks like it can be fun. It's just that free-to-play gimmick, the paying for everything, and it just feels very... It just feels very cheap to me. It doesn't seem like
it's like all the modern games now, mostly that, like, it's all about the in-game purchasing, and that drives me nuts.
It just feels cheap. It feels like you're trying to make money off of me, and it's fine when it's like an Angry Birds on my phone kind of thing. It's like, of course, I'm using that to pass the time while I'm waiting for my train or something. But if I'm gonna plug that into my home console or something, I'm not. Like, no, I'm not doing that, you know? And it's not to take away from people who are into that, you know? And I know a lot of kids love Fortnite and those Battle Royale type of games, you know? But it's not for me.
Yeah.
Like, if I'm going to play a first-person shooter or something, like Overwatch, that's what it feels like a cheap knockoff of Overwatch. And Overwatch is, I haven't played it in a little while, but I think it's just a full-fledged version of that, honestly.
Yeah. I think, was it PUBG is the same way? I think it's, like, almost the same game almost.
Yeah, and it just,
So... unfortunately, we're gonna leave the video game world. Do you maybe have a goal, or do you have a goal of maybe one day joining a certain type of promotion that you would want to work for one day?
Absolutely. Honestly, my mindset right now is very open. I just want to wrestle cool people, travel, live my dream, do my craft on a level where I can, you know, be seen, you know, and I just want people to see me and for my message and for what I'm all about to get across to people, because, you know, I think that's when I'm really doing what I'm doing on a level that matters, you know?
Right.
And I think that, you know, that can be being on TV, that can be having a nice, expensive contract. And those things are nice, very nice. I'm not going to say knock being rich and famous, but that's not all I do this for. Like, to me, it's about representation. And I think that it would mean a lot to a lot of people if, like, you know, another black Mexican kid from Brooklyn who didn't have a ton of money made it in this wrestling world, you know, he made it in life, you know, and I think that stuff is very inspiring. Like Kofi Kingston this whole year has just been super inspiring to so many people. And I look at that stuff and I'm like, that's what I want to do. You know, I want to inspire that kind of hope and change, because a guy like Kofi Kingston, he's just worked so hard, and he's just such a positive person that you can't knock it. Even if you're not a fan of his work, which is fine. You can not be a fan of certain people. It's whatever. But you can't knock it. You can't knock it at all. You have to go, damn. That dude is
Like,
so.
it literally is the definition of like hard work pays off in the end. Like it's literally the definition. He's literally proving the definition, and the saying is correct. Like, he worked so hard to get to that point in his career, and it's paying off for him. So it really is truly an inspiring story.
Yeah, definitely. But I mean, Impact Wrestling, AEW, of course. Ring of Honor would be cool because, like, I look at Ring of Honor and I think that they're going through a lot right now, like a lot of changes, and I think that, like, it'd be kind of cool to go somewhere like that and kind of like be a part of a new era there, if that makes sense.
Right.
Obviously, for a lot of people, the end goal is WWE. And I'd be lying if I didn't say that was sort of where my head was at, kind of like where I'd be like, oh yeah, of course, one day I want to make it to a point where I can be at Wrestlemania and where I can wrestle and travel the entire globe. But now AEW is a thing, and it's like it's so cool because like that's a whole other option where you can also travel the world, also be on network TV, also like reach people in a different way, and it's just so intriguing, and like that's a whole option right there, And my friends, they're living it up, and I can't wait to see the stuff that they're gonna do because they're so talented, they work so hard, and I can't wait for the opportunity to be able to be at that level.
We certainly hope you do reach there one day. That's for sure.
Thank you. I absolutely appreciate that.
Definitely back you on that. By the way, Secret Detective said he may not be on your list, Tiff. I'm putting him on my top 5 of husband list. So you made
I made the list.
You made somebody's list of husbands.
Oh my gosh, that's kind of. So what did I do? Like, dude, I wasn't. I mean, jokes. I wasn't really trying. I don't know if that sounds rude, but I was just trying to do the interview kind of thing.
That's awesome. See, the list of husbands. You need a shirt. Right. That's awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So where do you see yourself in 5 years when it comes to wrestling or just life in general?
I hate these questions.
So I started to hit you with the interview question here.
Like,
I feel like this is a question we got to stop asking the wrestlers here, Kyle.
It's an interview type question. Like, what are you going to do for us?
I'm trying to be a little bit more goal oriented with wrestling in terms of like, I want to do this, I want to do that by that time. So I don't get comfortable. Not to say that I think I'm a comfortable person, because I'm always I always feel like I'm that kid with his back against the wall, having to prove to the whole world, like, hey, I can do this. I'm a good wrestler or whatever, And like, I always have to prove that. So for me, I just want to get to a point 5 years from now. I would like to be traveling regularly, not just like maybe once a month or once every 2 months. I'd like to travel regularly. I'd like to be in a position where maybe I have a following, a bigger following on social media. I have more of a respect, more of a notoriety almost in the wrestling industry. That'd be cool. Like, just having the respect of certain people in the industry just would mean a ton. And I don't know, because I could go anywhere. I made it very clear, but I'm pretty young, and I think that a lot can change. 5 years from now, I'll probably be like, what, 28, 27? So like, I don't know where I'm going to be at 28, 27. And I think it's exciting because it's like, you shouldn't really be able to predict life like that. I think part of the fun is like, you don't know where you're going to go. And that's why I hate this question, because I'm like, I don't know. I think deep down inside,
might have to cut that out from now on.
Yeah. No, but he gave such a great answer.
Yeah.
Like, I love, like, it's funny because even Anthony too, like, you guys have like great answers. Like, you can really tell like how you guys are. You guys are really humble, and it's like, I love it. And I love doing these interviews because we're getting the real you guys, and it's just so awesome to me.
Hey, there's no part of me on social media and all that stuff. It's the real deal. People always tell me that too. They're like, wow, like they'll meet me in person. They're like, oh wow, you're really like. I'm like, yeah, I'm not supposed to really be like this. Like, no, and I get it, wrestling, blah blah blah. But like, this is me, and I've had to get to a point where I had to work hard and get to a point where I can, like, I had to fight to be me in wrestling. I had to fight and push against it, because there's people who go, well, I think people maybe just want to see you get beat up, or well, maybe people just would rather see you like this or see you like that. People view you like this, and I was like, well, okay, maybe you're right, but I kind of see myself like this. So like, and that's not like to be like cocky. It's just more like I think I work hard. I think that the potential is always there. I think the potential is in anybody. Like that's not just a me thing. I think anybody who works hard can get to the top. Right. It's just a matter of timing and just grinding. So to me, it's like, why can't I be the best? Because I smile a lot? Because I'm young? Because I don't know, like what, I'm not attractive. I don't know, like I'm not attractive enough or something. Like I just genuinely don't know. And sometimes I'm just like, that sounds silly. I don't think that that's how you rank who the best is or who the best are. You have to just be it.
That's awesome. I like that. So unfortunately, we're here to our final question of the interview. What is a piece or?
Yeah, I'm on 4%. We're cutting it.
Okay, so what is a piece or some pieces of advice you would want to give to a young, inspiring wrestling growing up in this business?
There's always an influx of newer House of Glory students jumping in, and I don't ever feel cool like going, oh well, this is what you got to like, because I remember being young and I never liked when people did that to me, because it's like you don't want to be told what to do. But I will say this: I will say, like, keep an open mind, keep an open heart, and just stay true to who you are, as well as knowing to work hard and just being humble. Wrestling doesn't owe anybody anything. I think that, like, it's a blessing to be able to do this. It's a blessing to be able to be a part of this industry, whether you're on the bottom, middle, whatever. You're like, it's just a blessing. And I think that if you keep that in mind a lot, even when you go through tough times and you have setbacks, it's so much easier to just stay grateful. And I've been through my setbacks and my tough times in wrestling. I've had my moments where I'm staring at the abyss like, oh my gosh, should I even be doing this? And then I remember I love this and I'm grateful for what I have. And that makes me want to get more out of wrestling and out of life, because I think that you stay true to who you are and you keep an open mind, you keep an open heart, and you just keep going. You keep going after your dream. It'll come true. It'll happen. And I think that's what I would try to tell someone younger than me coming into wrestling.
That's awesome. That is honestly a really good answer. Yeah. Yeah. So we want to thank you very much, Leroy, for joining us today on our second episode of Under the Ropes. It's been a pleasure talking to you about wrestling, getting to know you, getting to know the story behind Leroy Green, and obviously just talking video games with you and having fun here. So that's what we try to aim for in this podcast. We definitely thank you very much for coming on the show today.
Yeah, thank you. This was a lot of fun. Let me plug High Intensity 8 one more time.
Yes.
Jamaica, Queens, August 9th, High Intensity 8. We got the Young Bucks versus Private Party. We got Montekia versus Matt Travis, Crown Jewel title match. We got your boy, the big game player, Leroy Green, in a suicidal six-way with Rich Swan, Charles Mason, Brian Burgundy, Matt McIntosh, and House of Glory student. So get your tickets now. It's also going to be on Fight TV. You can stream it there. And
we're going to take a picture together.
Yeah. Usually, I'm much better at this. Usually, I do it in like one take.
Awesome. You guys heard it right. Go support House of Glory and go check out Leroy Green, a High Intensity 9, going to be an insane pay-per-view event. Thank you, Leroy, for joining us, guys. This has been episode 2 of Under the Ropes on the No Holds Barred Network. I'm your host, as always, the self-proclaimed greatest host, Kyle Masters, joined by my co-host, the Heartbreak Chick, the executive vice president of Giggles, Tiffany, and of course Leroy today. And guys, we'll see you guys next time with the next wrestler on Under the Ropes.